Hello and welcome to Season 2, Episode 29 of Fabrically Speaking Live. I'm your host, Clare Rowley, and I'm the inventor of the Creative Feet line of sewing machine products. Today we're going to make a broomstick skirt for this little American girl doll, and it's been a hectic little start of the day. I don't know how in focus I'm going to be. My camera wouldn't let me put myself in focus. Have you ever been told to clear your cookies? If you've ever been told that, then you may have experienced the kind of morning that I had. Every single thing that I have to log into, I had to re-log into, and they changed all their security protocols on every platform that I use all today. So, hi Tina, hi Lorinda. I need to catch my breath. And somehow I'm here and ready to start, except for I forgot something on the printer. So let's see. What should I leave you looking at? I'm like, good morning everybody, but it's not morning, is it? It's afternoon. It's after 2:15 here. It's hot in Hood River. Where's Hood River, Lorinda? What state is that? So I bought this doll a long time ago with the intention of teaching you guys some doll clothes. And today my doll stand came in, but it doesn't do a very good job of standing her up. She's been sitting too long. But it is kind of nice to have a stand when you're working with a doll, just like it's easier to design a dress for us with a dress form. I never unsewed the hair, so it looks kind of weird. Have any of you ever made clothes for the American Girl doll? If you have, hit a thumbs up. Oh, it's in Oregon. Of course it is. Now I know. Let's see if I can't get this stitching line out from her hair. It's probably a chain stitch and you just pull it. Yes, it is. So I'm really shaky today. I'm really shaky today. And I don't know why I'm so shaky, other than I did have coffee, but I have coffee every day. I don't know. So it's almost like I'm nervous, but I'm not. Have you ever been really shaky at all? Just like you can't really figure out why you're shaking? I just took some nuts and I have a shake, protein shake to drink. And this is the kind of stuff you look back on and go, Claire, why'd you say that stuff? Hello, everyone. I didn't get to notify the school, I don't think. I started to. Hi, Penny. Oh, that's right. I was going to go get the instructions off the printer. So basically, a broomstick skirt is a multitude of tiers. And really, the amount of tiers, I was going to pull out my skirt. I actually have a full-size broomstick skirt. Trying to think of where it is. There's so many samples. So I need to get this cheat sheet of the size. And if you saw hi Iris from South Carolina, if you guys saw the picture at the beginning, it is a pattern that you can access. I'll have you look at their site so you can get it. It's a free pattern. And here we go. So crafty me. So go ahead and look at that and pull it up if you want to have the pattern for this cute little skirt. And I'll be right back with my skirt sample and the printout so I can have no further delays. I'm in here and it's not in the suitcase, so where would I have put it? Well, we do have, I don't know, a couple hundred different samples. So maybe I will find it. It's like I used to have it just draped. And probably if you've ever seen me at a show, you've seen it hanging up behind me. And it was made by my customer named Joyce. And she was a professional skirt maker. The very first year that I released the Creative Feet to the world. Oh, I forgot. Why didn't it switch? Oh, I messed up. That's happened to me twice. I'll tell you what, guys. I'm going to get better at this. If this was my only job, if all I had to do was show up live for you guys, it'd be easy by now. All this just to get her hair undone. So it's majorly storming as well. So if I all of a sudden disappear, it's because the power went out. And I really get nervous about having all my equipment on when there's thunder and lightning. But so far we've been pretty lucky. Hi, Marsha Morgan. It's hot. And is it cool anywhere in the United States today? Or you're not in the United States? I think it's cold in Australia. Hopefully some of you from Australia are watching today. I know a lot of you hide in the background. Oh, this is just not worth worrying about, but I can't help it. I have that kind of personality. I like to finish what I start. Okay, I was thinking about making an American skirt and doing red, white, and blue, but all that equipment, logging in on everything, slowed me down considerably today. It is more fun, though, to have more than one color, I think, on the skirt. Let's see if I can get her in here and standing up. There are better doll stands than this. Stay. Okay. I'm going to put this on the screen so you guys have it. It might be easier to read it on this one. So if you were to pause this, you have what you need in order to cut out the pieces to make this skirt for the American doll. Your sizes are going to be determined based on your waist, or if you're making this for a granddaughter, you'd want to measure their waist and make sure you give enough room for it to go up over their hips area. And because it's an elastic waistband, you don't have to worry about a zipper. Let's see if it's in here. It's a big skirt. I'm just like kind of dumbfounded as to where I would have put it. Oh well. So should I make it all one color or should I make it more than one color? And one of the things I like to do when I make this type of skirt is I like to use trims between each tier on the fabric. And I have a whole stack of ribbons up there. So let's see. She's going to have that as her outfit because I don't have a top. Maybe another day for that. That one goes nicely. I think I'm just going to keep it simple today. Well, maybe not. Yeah, I'm just going to use one color fabric. I have been planning something else and it is invading my sleep because I'm so excited about it. And this is a little sketch that I did. So something fun's coming up, you guys. And if you have the Octi-Hoops, this is what we're going to be doing with the Octi-Hoops. However, it is not going to be a live. It's going to be a pre-recorded and you follow along kind of thing. But in my sleep, I'm dreaming about all these movements that I'm making with my hand to draw these different designs. Do you guys ever do that? Dina's like, come on, multiple colors. It's not really a different color, but it's a different fabric. We'll go. Tina has a way of pushing me around. Tina and Amy, you guys gang up on me and make me push further than I normally would, don't you? All right, so we have 3 different fabrics. But you can make as many tiers as you want. This pattern calls for 3. But you could actually, it depends how wide you cut the tiers or ruffles, determines how long the skirt will be. So if you were to cut the ruffles in half, then you can sew that many more trims on, because everywhere there's a seam, there will be a trim. All right. I think I'll have this be the top and in the middle. So we'll have 4 tiers. I wonder if I'm going to need to iron. Looks pretty good. I love you, Tina. I love how you guys encourage me, is a better way. Oops. You guys are my cheerleaders. In this lesson, I'm going to use the Satinedge foot and the Sequins and ribbon foot. Can you guys guess what the Sequins and ribbon foot will be doing for sewing this skirt? Oh, actually, I'm going to use all 3 of the creative feet. And if you're not familiar with them, they do come in special packages like this one. This is our educational special. Because our feet do over 20 things each, there is a book and video, and this one comes with the book and video on a USB. So there's a 208-page workbook and a 2-hour instructional video inside of this USB. And then you got the Satinedge, the pearls and piping, and the Sequins and ribbon foot. And on this side are guides that make it so you can do more sizes of trims with the Sequins and ribbon foot. In addition to that are adapters that snap onto the foot, transforming it from a snap-on foot into whatever shank you may need for your sewing machine. Each of the creative feet have much larger openings than other feet, which is in part why our feet fit all machines, where you normally buy 1 foot and it only fits 1 machine. It's because their opening is so small for where the needle goes in and out of the fabric. See how small that opening is? And see how big ours is to accommodate all the different needle positions of every sewing machine. Even industrial sewing machines can use our feet. And this is the binder. It ends up becoming a place where you put all your practices, little samples, and write notes so that you know what you did in order to create whatever it was you were doing. And you go through the whole book, and you end up learning about 88 different things with the book and the video combined. So when you watch me on the show, you're seeing me make projects using the feet. And the projects are limitless, so every pattern that you've ever bought, you could be using our feet to sew them. All right. I want to kind of tape this so it doesn't fall down anymore. I'm going to be using a universal needle for the whole project, except for the elastic part, or I could do an encasement on the elastic, and then that would eliminate the need for the Sequins and ribbon foot. Because encased elastic, well, you don't sew on it, right? Stay up. Put her aside. What is that on her face? It looks like she has a microphone. Doesn't it? Oh, that's the wire coming around, wrapping around her face instead of her neck. It looks like she's talking. I think I'll leave her that way. Okie dokie. That's a trend. I started saying that last week. My mom's old saying. So the maxi skirt. The first tier is 15 long by 4 1/4 wide. And I was going to make another one, or make a skirt before I started, but I did not get to. Do any of you use boards or cardboards and fold your fabric over them so that you can stack them on your shelf like they have at the fabric store like I did? I feel like I need a nap. I think I'm just going to end and see you tomorrow. No, I'm just kidding. She's got such a small body. That must be the... I think I'm going to do my own measurements. This makes me nervous. So 15 inches long for the first tier, 23 for the next, and 35 for the next. And that is because you gather the tiers of fabric below the first one. This is when it's nice to have my board with lines on it for my caterpillar. One way of cheating. It's half of Is this the fold? Oh, my eyesight. I'm just going to do this. You don't really have to follow the guidelines for how much of a gather you have. You can make it longer and have it be really gathered. You could also use this pattern to do a tutu for sure. And our Pearls and Piping Foot makes sewing the tool for a tutu so fast and easy. I'm like, where's my cutter? It's in the drawer. Oh, so you're really organized, Lorinda. You guys read what she wrote? She measures and then inventories it and takes a photo and stores it in a tub. My. I could use you around here, Lorinda, to clean up and organize. Kind of like, okay, I'm not going to second guess myself, but I was going to use this as the top tier. It's actually a cuter one. Boy, that thunder. It's very ominous. This is maybe too small. Okay, so sewing clothes, the getting set up is not as much fun as I would like. I'm gonna make it have a small waist. Straighten that out. I have tubs of fabric. In addition to that, I also have this drawer unit to my side that has big box-like sections, and you slide it in, and that's full. So it'd be nice to have another one of these. They're saying that the first one is 15 inches long. And the next one is 23. This would be kind of cute on the hem too. Have it be on the top and the bottom of the skirt. Or should I do repeatings of these? And have it just be these two and then repeat more often. Hi, Barbara from Pittsburgh. I wish I could remember where I put the skirt. So you could go, ooh, that's awesome. My brain is stressed because of the storm. Do you guys ever cut like that, or are you very precise? So this, and then this. What do you think? I don't even have to do 3 tiers. I could just do 2. I didn't promise you guys anything. Except for that would be boring. 2 with more repeating. Okay, we have a consensus and I agree. Hey, by the way, the air conditioner is all fixed. Well, I'm not shaking anymore. Thank goodness for that. The very first pattern I ever designed was a skirt pattern for adults or for junior high girls. All right, so she's not very tall. It's about 9.5 inches from the ground to the waist. We're going to lose some for each layer of seam allowance. 1, 2. Should I do ribbon or should I do lace? I have this beautiful lace that I've used before, but that would be more lace for every one because I don't have a variety of those. Or should I do alternating ribbon? And I can also do rickrack, you guys. Have you guys ever seen me sew with rickrack on the show? I don't know if you have or not. This is so silly. I should have just got the mat out. One, 2. So when you go to that website, it's really not a pattern that you print out. It's step by step on the screen. Okay. What do you think? I feel like I'm making a quilt. Lace or ribbon? Want some rickrack too? Trying to think of how many colors I have. You could definitely have used a jelly roll for this and sped the whole process up. The Sequins and Ribbon Foot is capable of sewing all kinds of trims. I've got red lace. That doesn't really go. And with the accessory, guys, we can use different size ribbons in width as well. This is for a Halloween project I got coming up. Then we have braids, and this would be too heavy for this, I think. I have so much trim. You could also do yarn for this and put yarn in between. And we can put sequins on it and make it a really fancy one. Oh, I know where that is. Oh my, I tell you guys. When you go to the fabric store, look for trim. This is how I buy it, especially when I do shows. But generally when you're at the store, it looks like this on a flat cardboard. Some of it's more appropriate for upholstery, and so I'm going to put those away. Where's my other trim? This is a jelly roll I just bought at Joann's. I couldn't resist the colors. This would be more like my color schemes. And I was thinking about adding some jelly rolls to creativefeet.com. So when I design something, you actually have the ability to duplicate what I'm doing. Would you guys like that? I know other sites are way ahead of me on that. City. What topic are you guys getting on? Let's try to think fluffy thoughts, sewing thoughts. All right. So the first part is going to be the waist on it. I think it'd be kind of weird to have a whole bunch of mix of trims on here. So I'm going to do it because I want it to be cute when I'm finished. With what is speaking to me would be either to do the lace or to alternate the ribbon colors. And I'm going to lay this out so you guys can choose, get ready to do the, say ribbon or lace. Because I think mixing them won't be as cute. The yarn is kind of striking, but I have plans to videotape something. I have plans to film something soon on. So if I did lace, it would be lace on each one. But if I do ribbon, and ribbon, I can combine decorative stitches to make it more exciting. Come on. And this is available in your Joann's and Hobby Lobby. Buy the roll like this. So you end up getting 5.49 meters. Get 6 yards of this. That's kind of cute though, huh? Having the lace in between. What do you think? These alternating down? The rickrack is too fancy. I can't find my cute non-metallic rickrack. If we have time, I'll show you how I sew the rickrack though. I think I'm going to go with the 3. The purple pops. Say purple pops 15 times. Or say, I think the purple pops is pretty. All right. So the instructions tell you to gather up your fabrics. So we'll gather them first. And the first tier so I have one that's longer than the rest, and then So that one will gather even more. Oh, by the way, last week's I thought about adding the ruffle on top of the pants, right where the cuffs are on the ankles. You could put a little ruffle going around. And also at the waist, you could have a ruffle in addition to the butterfly. If you didn't watch last week's episode of Fabrically Speaking Live, I showed how to make pants for a toddler. And hopefully I will have time to hang my design wall. We've just been keeping up with orders. So many people buying the Creative Feet right now, thankfully. And kind of slowed me down on getting my design wall set up. But we are at that point. And now I'm trying to figure out the easiest way. Oh, that thunder is right above me. Crossing fingers, the power doesn't go out. If the power does go out, I'll see you next Thursday. Or in the school, I may have an impromptu live. Actually, I was thinking about doing one anyway, where you guys get to talk. So the first one is for the waistband elastic, and they have you make a tube on it. And whenever we have to sew seam allowances, in this case, what we want is the size of elastic that you're choosing to use, which I have the 1/2 inch elastic ready from last week. The pattern called for 3/8 inch, I believe. But 1/2 inch will be fine. It'll just be a little bit bigger. So we want to make sure that when we fold this over that we have, I do need my iron. And if you know me, you know that if I can avoid the iron, I avoid the iron. Do any of you feel that way? I'm going to iron all of these. What should I name my doll? Or do they have names? Zari Crafts. I'm glad you find it interesting. I feel like I'd be more exciting if I were just already sewing. So these are about 1.5 inch strips. But you don't even have to have them all be the same. So this one's 1.5, this one's 2 inches. And that adds more interest. And the gathering is just so easy. There's no reason not to make lots of tiers. Because you will not have tiers like you normally would. Sorry for being corny. Do you guys hear the thunder? I wish I could hear you guys talk. So, should I do a coffee talk in the school, you guys? Would you guys like that? A coffee talk is where I am not at the sewing machine. I'm at my computer, and I can pull up videos on my YouTube channel and answer questions. I've only done one so far, and a lot of people really enjoyed it, so I was thinking about scheduling one of those. Did I say something that made you laugh, Cynthia, or someone else? What's funny is that as I'm talking right now, you aren't seeing me talk right now. You're seeing me talk almost a whole minute, maybe even longer, after I've already said what I'm saying. That's why I have a headphone in, because this is me. When I hear, I'm hearing what you hear, or when you hear it. So I know when you hear it, it can get really confusing and make you feel really wacky by the end of a filming. That was so loud. My poor dog, scared to death. Tinkerbell can't hear that well anymore. She doesn't care. Ugh, so much ironing. This would be one time I would not use spray starch. And so I won't. Okay, so the shortest one is the waist. There we go. And I guess I'm going to use the iron. Let's see if it helps. Usually I prefer the presser for things like this. So I'm really not following the pattern. I just wanted to give you guys something, and I needed a picture. So I'm folding the waistband in half, and I'm going to do my own method. Whether or not it's the same as what they do, it'll be quicker. Bring on the corny, huh? Yikes! I'm really good at dropping irons. So I folded it in half, and now what I want to do is I want to fold it under for like 1/4 of an inch. Sorry, I move away from the mic sometimes when I'm over here. So on one side, I'm going to do 1/4 of an inch over. I really do prefer my presser when I do stuff like this. At least for the first initial press. And I'm currently caught up on pressers because I am the one who makes these. All of the ones that we had on order have been made and shipped out. So if you want to get it quickly, now would be a good time. And as you can see, I am pressing without risk of burning my fingers. And I'm going to tell you a little secret. By having the pad warmed up first, then it makes the presser press even easier. And we're going to put our elastic in here, and this is going to help me top stitch that waistband on. I think so, Cynthia. Instructions are kind of like an insinuation, kind of like a yellow light. You can stop if you want, or you can keep on going. Okay, so maybe I shouldn't have said that. Shoo. So the next tier is a little bit, it's bigger than the first one, so you can gather some. And they suggest that the first tier be 15 inches long, so it would be, that's this one here, and there's no gather on that one. I didn't really cut them all. All right, I'm going to gather this one up a little bit. What is her? Come here. I feel like I need a hair clip for her. I haven't played with dolls in a long time. Not since my daughter was into dolls. She's 32 now. My daughter is as old as my company. Hi, Tink. Oh, are you starting to hear the thunder? I just cleaned everything out. I had a whole bunch of hair ties in here. Clip it clips. Just trying to get the hair out of the way. It's kind of like my hair. There's a new use for the clip it clips. I could tie it with ribbon, couldn't I? All right, how big is her waist? Bless you, honey. She's got allergies. She never used to. Now she does. She sneezes a lot. Her waistline is 11.5 inches. Oh my goodness. So the finished size needs to scrunch down to that. It's much better to have made this before. So the next tier is going to be gathered. This is going to gather naturally from the elastic, and then this one we're going to have to gather up so that the length of the second ruffle, it fits into the top. And this is going to be coming down like this too, pretty sure. Couldn't print the pattern out. I could pull up their website. But I'm going to go ahead and gather this up a little bit. I'm going to actually gather. Do I want to gather each one? Do I even know what I'm doing? Not today. I'm selecting a straight stitch. And I'm putting on my pearls and piping foot. Boy, it's really dark down here. It's like it didn't do it. One of the settings. I hope it's not too dark for you guys. It's kind of romantic feeling over here. This is the pearls and piping foot. And it has this tunnel. And that tunnel is for sewing trims, but this foot also helps you gather your fabric, like amazing. I choose what thread I want to use, and I'm going to use a 40 weight thread because I want my stitches to show. I was gonna let you guys help me decide. Oh my. Nothing like thunder. Enough to make you jump. While filming live. Something you've never done. You'll see this better on this. However, Will you see it well on this? Yes, you will. And then I'll have this one handy for the other thread. You can play around with that. It takes me a while to thread things though. You don't have to match the bobbin thread in this case. So you could have a neutral bobbin, one that blends nicely with the fabric, which I found in my machine last week. It's a beautiful blue. Kind of like a blue-green. So this is the bobbin I'm going to use, which goes nicely with that. And even though this is significantly lighter, it's going to be the bobbin. I'm going to mute myself and sip a little bit on my protein drink. Maybe I can start being better. Hold on one second, you guys. Oh my goodness. What did I say? See, I hit the button and then I hit the wrong button. I think I need to move them around on my keypad. I'll try to remember. Okay, backtracking. Whenever you have a piece of fabric and you don't know how big it needs to be to fit the next piece, you want a gathering stitch, not a ruffle. If you're familiar with the term ruffle, and you know that a ruffle and a gather are both a ruffle in the end, both of them are gathered fabric, but they are not the same thing, even though they end up both being a ruffle. So what makes them different? A gather is adjustable and a ruffle is not. And that is why I don't recommend using the ruffler for this type of thing, because you won't be able to adjust the gathers to fit into the smaller piece if it's locked in place. And the pearls and piping foot is perfect. I tell you what, I did hit unmute, but apparently I probably just hit mute. Sorry, guys. Thanks for not letting me go too far. So now I have the pearls and piping foot on the machine. And I've set the machine on the tightest tension, which is a 9, and the longest stitch length, which is a 5. And that is on my machine and on almost all other machines as well. So if you have a sewing machine and it doesn't have numbers on your tension, it just has lines, then just go all the way to the tightest setting. And if you have a old sewing machine where you spin the front and it can go on and on and on and on, well, you probably don't need to go further than 1/2 turn. And you might want to mark it with like a little nail polish, or to have a piece of painter's tape and tape it onto the machine and mark that, so that you know, pay attention to what on the machine is lined up with what before you go turn in that tension dial on an antique sewing machine, because you can get lost and take a long time to figure out the perfect tension setting. If any of you have ever experienced having trouble getting your tension set, hit a thumbs up so that others can relate. My foot control is in the wrong spot. Here we go. We're all good now, right? So a few stitches forward. By the way, you guys, I bought like 10 pairs of readers. They didn't arrive yet, but I kept forgetting where I put mine. So I'm going to leave a set everywhere that I use them. So I never have to say that. So I've sewn a few stitches forward, a few stitches back. Tension's 9, length is 5. And now I just look at where my fabric is. And I'm holding, but barely holding, just a real light scissor hold on the fabric, just to kind of keep it straight. Not watching the actual foot itself. Did I go back? I may not have. Should be gathering more than that. Now, if I spray starched my fabric, it would be harder for the fabric to gather. Move this out of the way. Pay attention to that because it gathers so much it wants to come back around. This is 40 weight polyester thread. Definitely don't need it to gather that much. So a shorter stitch length would make it not gather as much. Okay, so I gathered it this much so that you can see something. If I cut my thread right now short, well, it's just going to unravel. I need to make sure I pull out enough thread so that this gather can fit within this casing. So that means you want to pull out a good length of thread. And it's the bobbin thread, and I usually do this when I gather. I usually have a different color in the bobbin than I do in the needle. And then I know which one is the bobbin thread. And the bobbin thread is the one you hold onto as you adjust your gathers in and out. So I didn't need to gather that much. But isn't it nice that you don't have to worry about breaking your thread because you're trying to pull it tighter? It's much easier to let it out than to pull it in tight. Have any of you ever used an alternate gathering foot and it didn't even gather? It's pretty disappointing. Expect this nice gather and then it doesn't happen. Boy, that's... I feel like I should have made one before I went live. So I'm going to adjust this out more. That's right, it's really a light gather. It is barely a gather, forgot. But this is how I teach you, show you how, explain why, and then next one I won't gather as much. But when you need it, it's nice to have it gather all the way up like that, like when you're making a tutu. It's also great for curtains. I'm going to make curtains. Also, another thing about a ruffler is you have to know how much to set the gathering for the ruffler to gather. And maybe one day I'll show you how to use a ruffler and why and when you'd want to use one. Looks like it's getting closer to the length of that. The thunder rolls. The messy top camera. Not bad, huh? Pretty close. So now I can look at it and go, okay, I'd like a little bit more here. And I'm going to sew that 1/4 inch to that. And now I'm going to use which foot am I going to use. But before I go and sew, you can actually use the Clip It clips. One of the reasons I use a really long stitch is so that it's easier to remove later. We want to pull this out and see, does it look like it's going to line up? And if it is, then we tie that stitch at the end. So then your once adjustable gather is no longer adjustable, and it prevents it from flattening out. Skipping this step can make your ruffle flatten out. So we're basically just tying the needle thread and the bobbin thread together at the end. And it just tightens it right on the edge of that actual fabric. Which fabric should be on top? The ruffled fabric or the flat fabric? You saw it gather, right, Tina? Oh, okay, I'll be showing you. Use a lighter tension to have it gather less. Now switching to the Satinedge Foot. And my machine, pretty much, if I take this nut and move it all the way over so that the wire inside of the opening touches the inside edge of the metal or of the plastic there, with my needle in the left needle position, is a 1/4 inch seam allowance. But for those of you who are coming in late or don't already have a Satinedge Foot or have it and haven't used it yet, that wire right there is the actual guide on the foot. And it it moves within the zigzag opening left and right based on you turning this nut. So moving it away from you moves the guide to the left, moving the nut toward you moves the guide to the right. Going to select a left needle position and lower your needle down on one of the lines on the measuring tape. And then you're going to move the wire to the 1/4 inch space. So the distance the wire is from the needle is the distance your seam allowance will sew. Now, those of you who know about the liquid-based glue, you may be tempted to use that, and you can. And it is better to have the ruffle on the bottom. If you like to use pins, you're welcome to do so. I have a microphone and light and stuff in front of me. Place the guide so it sits off the edge. And then try not to stretch on that ruffle. I want to just position your finger about 4 to 5 inches away and plant your finger. Make sure your tension is no longer at 9. And we're going to go ahead and secure this. Come on. Here we go. And my focus is not over at the needle, but right here, and then I alternate my vision or my view to looking here. I want to make sure both the bottom fabric and the top fabric are always touching the white part of the guide. And this is easily made into a full-size skirt for yourself. Although if I were going to make a skirt like this for myself, I would use a more drapey fabric than cotton. I would use like a rayon fabric or like a silk charmeuse, something that flows nicer. Because I have more than I desire around my midriff. If you're thinner and you want to make yourself look a little bit fuller, then stiffer fabric for this will do that for you. I totally forgot what I was going to show you. But this is the waistband and it's fine. The rest of this thing is going to be made different. Nice and accurate. Now we can take and we can sew the trim on the top. Now that's the gathering stitch that you can pull out afterward. And I already pressed it so that it would be in the correct spot. I was going to show you a different way of constructing this, but I think that since this is the waistband, I'm not going to have a trim on this particular seam allowance. And I'm going to show you how we can top stitch. So now once again, the distance your needle is away from the guide determines the actual stitching line. So I'm moving the needle and the guide closer to one another. And this is where my eye is focused. Remember, this fabric was already pressed And now you know why. Be a lot harder to press it now with this in the seam. Lowering the needle when you stop to adjust. Elbow should be down on the table. I was sitting very awkward because I have all of this in my way. So, but this is the proper posture, much better for you. And you're supposed to bring the fabric to the guide from the left. And my hand was too far forward. If you rewind the video after I'm done live, you'll see my hand was in front of the foot, which makes the fabric bounce off of the guide. So it's really important to have your finger to the side of the foot, never in back or in front. And we're speaking about your left hand. So now I'm in a proper position. Moving the microphone away. It'll be much easier for me to keep the fabric touching the white part of the guide. And I'm kind of keeping an eye on the ruffles, making sure they go underneath the guide. Whenever you need to, you just stop and lower your needle and lift and kind of fluff it back out again. It's not a race. It's about sewing accurately, not sewing fast. But it's so much easier to have something sitting still to look at than the needle going up and down. And then you have this beautiful top stitch. And the difference between a top stitch and an edge stitch is an edge stitch would be along that edge. And I am going to press this edge under. Doing so again by heating this pad first. So we're just getting the ironing surface warm, and you can push steam through to increase the temperature and the moisture. You can use your iron if you're good at ironing small pieces of fabric over and not burning your fingers. But getting your fingers close to that hot metal is very, painful if you've ever done it. Have any of you ever burnt your finger with an iron? Hi, Amy. Welcome to the party. So I'm just getting my ironing surface hot. And now I can turn it off and set it aside. Now I'm going to fold this edge under. And once again, press with the presser. This is how to make your presser hot or warm. And I'm working this through in my mind because I can do this without even folding under. But this is what they show you, so I'm following their method. Anybody have any questions for me while I'm doing this mindless work? After all the years of pressing 1/4 inch seam allowances, I've gotten pretty good at determining what a 1/4 inch is. But you could use a seam gauge to help you. Do you guys know how a broomstick skirt gets all crunchy or wrinkly and stays that way? And do you know why they call it a broomstick skirt? Okay, now we need to gather up another piece. And this piece is significantly longer than that piece. And this time I'm going to gather it less so that I don't have to bore you while I ease it out. But that is the correct term for easing. Easing is gathering something up and then expanding it to fit between 2 points or 4 points. If you have like a piece of elastic and you want to put it in your skirt and you want to sew your elastic in flat, then you would measure your elastic to fit your body and have like 4 inches extra so that you can snip it off afterward. And I'm not sure, but I may use that method for this so that you can see how you can gather like wrists on little girls' dresses and make Barbie skirts. So we'll see if we do an encasement. I'm going to do the elastic next, second to last. Okay, so thank you for reminding me what I asked. No, why? So in the old days, when they made these skirts, they would wrap them around a broomstick and then tie ties on it and have it sit like that. And then they'd open it up and it would be all wrinkled all the way down the skirt. So how you can do it nowadays is you can take a pair of pantyhose and you can slide it into a pair of pantyhose. And to make the gather, and I keep wishing that it would just appear in here so that I could show you the actual skirt that I have. But you can use vinegar in water. And know that vinegar loses its smell after it dries. So we're talking about white wine vinegar, or like white vinegar, not apple cider vinegar. And you add like a teaspoon of that to water and just get your whole thing after you've pre-washed. Make sure you're pre-washed so nothing bleeds. Pre-wash your fabric before you make things and you don't have to worry about that happening. So you get it all wet with vinegar and water and then throw the skirt in your dryer with it in the pantyhose, and then you take it out and pull the skirt out of the pantyhose and you have a beautiful gather that remains for until you need to wash it again. It's quite cool, but you could go back and get your broom out and you could wrap it around your broom as well and use rubber bands and tighten it that way. That's right, Cynthia knew. Okay, I'm going to switch back to the pearls and piping foot again. And depending on your machine will determine really how much it gathers as well. So I'm going to use a straight stitch once again. And I'm going to use my length, the longest. And this time I'm going to take my tension to 7. You want to make sure you have the length, because if you want to rip the stitches out, if I weren't able to be so accurate in when I sewed that seam allowance or the top stitch, I would have had my gathering stitch showing, and then it's easier to remove it by clipping the bobbin thread and then pulling it out if it's longer. If your stitch length's short, well, you know how hard it is to rip out a seam that's got a short stitch length. So a few stitches forward and back. And I want it to gather, so I'm adjusting my tension and seeing the result I'm getting. So now I'm at 5.5. 5.5 looks good. Remember, you can always let it out easier than you can bring it tighter. So this is a 6 tension. And it's doing a nice little gather. And you may not notice that I do these things. I like put my pinky down on the side of the fabric. It just rests right there, and it becomes a seam guide for sewing straight. I'm not pushing down, and if you stay in one spot, you're more consistent. This finger does a little bit of steering, and my eye is focused here. And I got like 6 inches extra. However, I didn't cut this according to any particular pattern. I think I'm going more for a consistent look than I am thinking that I've got it correct in the length. Does that make sense? I just cut really long pieces and made each one a little bit longer. This is getting cute though. It is getting cute, I must admit. But I'm thinking that the basting glue would be more relaxing to know that you've done it. And if you did do the basting glue, you could glue it down and then stitch your trim on and skip the first seam. I think that is consistent on how close or how much I gathered the other one. I'm still going to cut long. Isn't that nice? Consistent. I'll tell you, when I used to make curtains when I was younger, I used to just break thread and break thread and break thread. Would you guys like me to show you something really cool? I don't know if I've ever shown you guys on the show. It's a gathering technique where you do 2 rows of stitching. I had a lady in Washington State when I did the Puyallup, what's it called? Sewing and Stitchery Expo. And she sat down and she watched the demonstration, and I did the gathering technique, and she was all excited about it, but she got really upset. And I was like, "Are you all right?" And she's like, "No, now I need you to tell me how to do the patterns. They call for 2 rows of stitching, and then they want you to gather it all the way up." And I said, "Yes, I'm aware, but I don't have a technique for that." And she's like, "No, you don't understand. They make you do this, and then the one thread constantly breaks." And she was just so flabbergasted. And I went to sleep that night, and I dreamt a method of gathering with 2 rows of stitching. Would you like me to show you, or should I skip it? If you want to see it, you got to make noise. Thumbs up, smiley face, heart, anything. Do something in the chat besides just sitting there, or I'm just going to take a break. I think this is going to be too short. I'll use this to show you. You always like to see something cool. All right, so here's the trick, because this is an extra piece. I don't know why I ended up with a small piece. Okay, so the first row stitching, secure the beginning again. Always do that forward and reverse whenever gathering. And I'm kind of keeping my eye along the side. Oh, I thought you were looking at the needle with me. Here we go. So the first row of stitching is done with a 0 tension. It's been a while since I did it. I almost forgot. And we're sewing down, and I don't know why it's pulling on something. So I'm pulling. I don't normally do that. I don't want it to gather at all for this first row. It's probably some paint I put somewhere on the machine, because I haven't been able to clear this machine of any paint where it shouldn't be, like right here. Okay, and then we want to cut our thread so that it's long. And while I'm doing this, tell me why they have you sew 2 rows sometimes, and sometimes they don't. Do you guys know why? Next row, put my tension to 9. It's taken that long to get to 9, so a few stitches forward, a few stitches back. Come on, back up. Then you grab hold of your bobbin thread from that first row of stitching, and you hold on and you don't let it go. It's definitely a little bit weird when your piece is really long, but you can like sit back away from the machine or hold your arm up like this, but you want to be holding on to that bobbin thread. And if you can't do it initially, well, I'm going to start. So you're pretty much having a tug of war with your machine. And now that you see what I'm doing, I'll go ahead and show you the needle. Come on. I probably should have... Did I tie a knot or something? There you go. So I'm holding on to this bobbin thread. And because the tension is really loose, the needle thread is kind of, if you can look and see, the needle thread is just these little loops, and the bobbin thread is straight. So it acts like a cording. And then this stitch that's being sewn down, well, the tension is really tight and it's pulling the fabric through. And this is what makes both rows of stitching gather at the same time. And this is what I call the couture method of gathering. The reason you want this is because you can stitch in the middle of those 2 stitching lines, and you can create like scalloped ruffles. it gives you a smocking look. Ooh, I wonder how many rows I could do at once. I've never tried. Now, if I were going to do 3 rows to maybe do a smocking technique that's not stretchy, is I would probably gather the middle one last and hold on to the 2 on either side. One day I'll try it. I'll let you know how it goes. So that is the most precise way that you can gather so that you can get more consistent stitching. It's a very pretty ruffle. So the bummer here is that I need another blue. Unless I just do a 3-tier. I think I'm just going to do a 3-tier. Sorry to disappoint. You're still going to learn. That's the most important thing. Should I take the time to cut one more, or are you guys okay with that? With it just being a mini skirt or a midi. She's so small. We're running long anyway. It's already almost 4. So that's a good length of a skirt. Right? You guys gonna cut me slack? So what are the rules? Ruffled side down when sewing your seams. Right sides together. Lorena's right about what? Yeah, Cynthia, I know a lot of people thought that. At a show, I'll ask the whole group. I'll go, so why do they tell you to sew 2 rows of stitching together? And people will go, because one thread's going to break. And that is what we tend to, that kind of spread around, but now you know the truth. And it's a powerful gathering technique, especially if you're going to do something really classy. I feel like I'm going to challenge this. I don't know. It'll look better if they're the same. There's all kinds of things you guys spread around that aren't true. That's one of them. The other thing is zippers are hard. They're not hard. They're pretty easy, actually. Just got to know the tricks. So the rule is ruffle side down on the bottom, right sides together. The fabric that's gathered, you want to have on the bottom. The feed dogs will help to pull it through. If you have the gathered on top, the foot is a flat thing, not moving like that, and it will kind of spread your gathers out. Switching back to the Satinedge foot for the 1/4 inch seam allowance. And the last thing I did with this was a top stitch, so it's not set. And then we want to make this piece is bigger than than it needs to be. So I don't really have to make sure it is lined up on that edge, but I'm going to anyway, because it's hard not to be consistent and make sure my tension is no longer set at 9 for the gathering. And I can see that there's more ruffle here than here, so I'm going to kind of spread it out, which you can't do if you used a ruffler. Straighten it out. So this time I'm having to go closer than every like 5 inches, which is interesting. And it's probably has to do with the light color fabric is softer. It's so cute though. I'm tired today, you guys. Every day I feel like I'm letting you down because I haven't done that quilt yet. I know so many of you are waiting for me to quilt my quilt. And last night it kind of felt like piecing after working all day, but I got all set up and then I went, oh my gosh, I really am tired. And so I had to lay down and rest instead. But now that we have like a resurgence of this virus or the new variant, I'm kind of putting myself in a, stay home more mode. So I am going to use more time to get more done. And I will catch up with the lake later. Wow, I'm glad I didn't cut that ruffle shorter. Oh boy, it's actually going to be too short. Half inch too short. Good thing it's just a doll dress. But isn't it adorable? It's so cute. It's gonna be a mini. That'd also be kind of like a cool hat or a bonnet. All right, I'm getting a little wacky here. Let's see. Oops. She definitely needs a shirt now. This reminds me of my daughter's Barbie skirt or Barbie outfit. This is what my daughter made. She was 8. I think she was 8, or was she 9? She was 8 or 9. I know because I saw it the first time I showed it on Home Shopping Network years and years and years ago. I said how old she was, and I rely more on my memory, her being me, my memory when I was younger than I do now. So she was either 8 or 9 years old, and she made this. And this is just a really easy little crop top. It's just like a rectangle, and there's elastic, and you tack it. And this is done with the Satinedge Foot. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I could finish the edge with the satin stitch on this, or I could use a trim. Or I could do both. Oh. Got something in my eye, you guys. So I'm hiding while I try to get it out of my eye. Not sure what it is. You know what? I'm going to have to go see in the mirror. I'll be right back. Aw, jeez, you're so scared. Have you ever just felt like it was huge? Whatever it was in my eye was big, except for I couldn't find it. It feels better. Look at her shake. You see her shaking? That's how loud the thunder is. Oh, I'm so sorry. You're scared. I'm sorry. I wish I could make it stop. Yes, I do. All right, let's finish this up. Want me to put you on your bed? There you go. Wow, whatever that was felt like a long piece of thread. Okay. So I'm gonna, let's see, should I skip it now? I'm gonna go ahead and do the top stitch just like before, because I think it actually will anchor that gather and prevent it from getting flat when I go ahead and apply trim onto the gather. We're making a little doll skirt. So cute. It's again doing that top stitch, which is however far away the needle and guide are from one another. It really doesn't matter how accurate you are on this because you're going to put trim over it. No one's going to see that stitch when you're finished. But it is nice to know that by pushing the fabric toward the guide, it gives you a consistent distance, because the guide is like a wall that won't let the fabric go too far. And now it's a little bit more challenging as well because this fabric is gathered a little bit. It's so cute. I started looking at the needle and then I went off the edge. Don't look at the needle. Keep your eye here because this hasn't happened yet. The needle already has happened. So that's why it's better to look in front of where you are. So these pieces, this was longer than that when I ended up. I just didn't follow the pattern. I kind of just guessed. It's going to be so nice to have readers like in all of the places I need them. I can't believe I even said that. Sure did creep up on me quickly, it feels like. Ta-da! I could make it a little bit longer by going up like that so that it has a little bit more length. I know that the rickrack really isn't that attractive for this, but there's a really, you know what, I don't have to show you it on this. I can still show you the thing that I want to show you. There's just so much we can do with the creative feet. It's like an hemline is like, there's so many different ways we can play around with different looks. So I always just want to do a satin stitch on the edge. You guys want me to do a satin stitch on the edge first? I could put satin stitch and then pearls on the edge. Or I could do a satin stitch and then the lace. I think that's what I'll do. But if I'm going to do that, I'm not going to use pink. I think it's time to pull out the purple color. It's more like a plum. This is the PolyFast number 1096, and it's very pretty. Isn't that pretty? And I don't know if you know that this is unique to all other polyester thread. They have created a way of making the thread like a diamond so it reflects more than others. You can read about it on our blog at creativefeet.com, where it's explained much better than I can explain it. See how pretty that lace is? Oh, I try to leave it up there for you to look at while I thread the machine. So I was actually going to ink my own fabric for this skirt and have it already inked before I went live. It's so powerful to have the ability to make your own fabric. Now if I could just make more time in a day. Do I have the same color already in a bobbin? I don't see it. I'm just going to use two different colors because it's not like it's a napkin. There is a right side and a wrong side. So what's really nice about the Satinedge Foot is that we do not have to... Hi Fiona, it's okay. Amy just got here not that long ago. I'm still sewing. So I'm moving the guide over and I'm going to select a width of 3.5 because I think that's a good weight for this fabric, which is not treated in any way. Using a regular zigzag stitch, which goes zig, zag, zig, zag. Turn the hand wheel to bring the needle down, and we don't really know what side the needle is coming down in. see that. Uh-oh. Boy, I got lucky. I'm trying to tip the machine so you guys can see. Don't fall over, machine. All right. So you can see the wire in there, and I want the needle to be on the right side of the wire when it's in the right swing of the stitch. And you don't want to sew through paper because it dulls your needle and can damage your fabric. For those of you who do paper piecing, you may not want to hear that. But I do have a technique for paper piecing without sewing through the paper. It is a video. So now that I've done that, the machine thinks that this isn't on. To put it back on. This is my quirky machine. Left swing of the needle goes on the fabric. Right swing of the needle goes over to the right. And you want to make sure that your needle is going over the wire. I'm always so far away from the needle while I'm here with the microphone in my way. I feel like I can move it. I'm just going to move the mic out of my way for a minute. This is the most important time when you're setting it up. Much better than breaking a needle. And I'm starting with my length at 0.5 because I think it will be good. And I'm along the edge where my seam allowance isn't, or is, will be. And isn't it nice to have the flexibility with this foot to switch from a top stitch, from a seam allowance to a top stitch, to now a napkin edge looking stitch or satin stitch on the edge. Watching the front of the foot. Ignore the sewing machine needle. And if you're not familiar with what you're seeing here, this is the Satinedge Foot doing a satin stitch. I designed this for a woman who was born blind and deaf. Her name was Mary, and she was taking tailoring at the Braille Institute when I met her. It was right when the Baby Lock Overlock machine released to the world, and she wanted to be able to make napkins with this stitch on the edge. She didn't know what it was. She took a napkin from the restaurant she ate at the night before, and even though she was blind, she was sewing, you guys. She was so inspirational. But she blushed, like she turned so red as she pulled this napkin out of her purse. You know, she fully intended to bring the napkin back, but she couldn't describe to me what she couldn't see. And all she knew is that she was feeling something she had never felt before. And so she brought that napkin to me, and it was the napkin edge that we were doing on the edge of fabrics with serger sewing machines. And I described the sewing machine to her and told her there was no way I was putting her on that machine with blades and loopers swinging around. And then we communicated in... I pulled. I should not be pulling. The heck was I pulling for? Gotta think where I left off on the story. This would work better with a spray starch piece of fabric. But isn't it nice to know that without treating it at all, you can still do it? Oh, we used to communicate in a machine. This is right when right before the Tandy computer came out. When we had those typewriters that had like a readout that would move as we typed. And so she would type, and I had a digital readout, and I would type, and she felt Braille letters hitting her fingertips. And that is how we communicated. I did it again. So I can't tell stories while I do this for some reason. Feels like it's feeding too slow. I got it way short. But I need to just let go. What's going on? A little bit longer. You're supposed to sew and then without holding on determine the stitch length. It's like not feeding right for some reason. What's going on? It was feeding great before. I think it's these long strands of thread coming off the fabric that got caught on something. It really is a lot of long pieces hanging off of this fabric. It's pretty unusual, really, for cotton fabric to be that hairy or shreddy. So spray starch eliminates a lot of that from happening. It's disappointing because I was doing so perfect. I prefer perfect. Even though I have these glasses coming, I'm so disappointed I can't find my really pretty ones that my customer gave me at a show. This is what you should be able to do, is not hold on when you're doing lightweight fabric like this. So keep your eye on if you have long threads hanging off, that they don't get caught on the front of the foot. So here I go. Definitely don't normally have to help this much. Spray starch. You guys saw me do it, like, right? From all the way to here, I had no trouble at all. So it's dealing with that. Also, this machine needs to go in for service just like the other one. And I have another dealer in the area that can service my featherweight. I just gotta stick it in my car. I keep seeing him and going, that's where I could take it. Because he doesn't have as long of a waiting list as the other guy. And even though I am a sewing machine mechanic, my eyesight isn't as good as it used to be. And it really hinders my ability to service sewing machines. It's also hard to service sewing machines with long fingernails. But what you're not seeing happen is you're not seeing the fabric get like crunched up inside of the opening. Takes a long time to do a satin stitch with a Satinedge foot. You could put 2 threads through the eye of 1 needle, which will speed up the time because you can use a longer stitch length and cover more ground. Okay, so now we have this satin stitch, and we can take and place this lace underneath it. Come on, it is so slippery. What do you think? Think that would be a pretty hemline? Or should I get a bigger lace? I have a bigger lace. You want a featherweight? You know, I used to have a dealership. And we had featherweights all over the place. If only I knew how valuable they'd end up. But we used to sell them for like $50, $75. That was the beginning of computerized machines, and people would trade them in, and they were just so excited to get rid of those and get the new fancy machines. And now everybody wants a little featherweight. How many of you have a featherweight? Thumbs up if you've got one. So that actually is an adequate hem already, but not as cute as it could be. Lace or ribbon, you guys? I feel like that thing is back. It can't be one of my hairs that was in my eye, could it? Thumbs up. Boy, somebody doesn't cut their threads very often. Are any of you bad at that? I'll bet Tina isn't. Tina, are you the one that catalogs and takes pictures of your fabric? I can't remember. Hi, Cynthia. I think I already said hi, but hey, hi again. All right, so I'm going to put the sequins and ribbon foot on and do some ribbon. And sequins and ribbon foot, when you purchase it, it comes with a 1/4 inch opening. And then we have additional guides. The 1/8 inch guide, which has the round hole for couching yarn, as well as smocking. Oh my gosh. I think the bobbin thread was stuck inside of the crevice of the machine. That's why it wasn't feeding normal. Okay, so whatever size trim you want to sew, you insert it into the guide. You don't want to have like a 1/4 inch wide trim insert into the 3/8 inch guide, because then it has the ability to slide left and right, and that makes it harder for you to steer. So that's why we have different size openings, to make it so that you don't have to worry about missing it with the needle. Ribbon or lace, you guys? We already debated this before. I have this really cute lace that I could put on the bottom of this, but it's kind of tricky. Okay, we're going to use this on top though. It's easier to put the ribbon or the trim inside the foot with the foot off of the machine and in your hand. It also reduces the chance of you sliding the ribbon down into the zigzag opening on accident. And then we're going to sew this on top of the top stitch, so no one will even see your top stitch. What a mess I have. Sure start out clean every day. Nothing like your trims getting tangled up with your thread tails that you procrastinate on cutting and don't put in the trash. So those of you who are in the VIP group, would you guys want me to go live on Saturday with you? It's the last weekend of July, and I'm using a 7mm wide width, and this is my 3-step zigzag, so it's going to go stitch, 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 because I just don't want to cover up the lace too much. And you could use the invisible thread and not see stitching at all. My pressure, release my pressure. I went short on the length instead of long on the length, so that was operator error. And I'm just helping my fabric lay flat, making sure the foot feeds it through. But I could move that trim over a little. Should have checked it before I got onto my garment. Then instead of watching the needle, you watch like the guide right there. You can also use a double needle on ribbon, and so both sides of the ribbon at once. Everything is so much nicer when I don't have everything in front of me. I sew so much better. Oh well. See how pretty that is? And how nice and flat it lays? I don't usually go very early in the day on that. I usually would go around 10. And the last time when none of you showed up, it was 11, I think. So should I do a ribbon so you can see a ribbon? Or do you get the gist of it and I can sew the side seam up and put the elastic in? Okay, so we got a yes to the ribbon. Should I put a double needle in and show you the double needle? Do you know how long it's been? All right, which color ribbon? Purple or the teal? That'll determine the color of thread that I use. I muted myself for a minute so I could drink some of my protein drink. Purple or teal, and then this is when it's nice to have extra bobbins laying around. And one of the features of the thread dispenser is the dual cone stand feature. So you can have 2 cones of thread feeding up to the machine at the same speed. If you have one thread vertical and the other one, or one thread vertical and the other one horizontal, or one thread further away from the other, they will feed at a different speed to that double needle. And they can cause one thread to pull the other thread through the eye of the needle it's in, and all of a sudden the other one hops out of the other needle and goes into that one, and you have no thread in the needle even though you threaded it. It is bizarre. And still to this day, I have a really hard time figuring out exactly how that happens. It doesn't even seem possible. So the only thing that can really happen or be happening is that when you take two threads and you use the traditional method that sewing machine companies have come up with, that one thread will grab the other thread and pull it, and then the hook snips it. And then instead of the thread just unthreading, that other thread grabs it and goes, come over here with me, and it takes it through the eye. It is something else. And it is why I came up with a thread dispenser. Every time I would sew double needles at a show, I end up with my thread doing that, and people would walk away thinking that it was the foot's fault. And I'd go, no, it's not the foot's fault. And I dreamt the thread dispenser, and then I woke up and drew a picture of it and had my brother Robert make me one. And that is how the thread dispenser was born, out of frustration from a double needle. So if you've never used a double needle, you may not know what I'm talking about. Or you may have one in your kit and not know what to do with it or be terrified of it. We have all kinds of needles available at Creative Feet. This is a wing needle. This one's fun. I could show you some stuff with that one too. And this is a very intimidating looking needle, isn't it? Here's a stretch needle for t-shirt hemming, which you can do with your Satinedge Foot. It's one of the techniques in the Creative Feet workbook. Or no, it's on the DVD, on the video that is available on USB and DVD. We have triple packs of needles. This is perfect, the 3.0. I have one that's single. So you have a single shaft that goes in the machine and two needles set into this plastic. And the distance the needles are apart from one another. This is a 3.0, perfect for the Pico Edge ribbon. And this is one of the hardest ribbons to sew because it doesn't have a straight edge. It has these little fluffy loops. A perfect challenge for our sequins and ribbon foot. So you cannot use your needle threader with this needle, you guys. Now I want my thread to show, so I'm going to use a colorful thread on top. You can wind two bobbins of the color thread that you want to use and stack the two bobbins on top of one another on the thread dispenser top posts. And then because they're in the exact same place and they're on top of one another, they spin at the exact same speed, and then your threads go to the double needle and you don't have to buy two spools of thread. So that's a cheat. I'm trying not to have to wind a bobbin, you guys. That's a 40 weight. And I want the thread to show, so I'm trying to use a complementary color. That's Invisifil. I can tell by touching them. I wish you guys that ability. That's Deco Bob. I want the color to show. Where's my other bobbins? I have two boxes like that. See, I'm like you guys. Anything. I just don't want to have to wind a bobbin right now. Let's see. I'm going to use 2 Deco Bob bobbins and stop messing around. It's already wound. And this is our master pack of 80 weight thread. So it's going to show. It won't show as much. Let's see. And I'm going to do that stacking process. Oh no, I dropped it. Oops, I have that taking a break. Tell me that wasn't there before. We're not taking a break. All right, so now I have 2 Deco Bobs. 2 of the same color and the same type of thread on a bobbin. And they're going to be sitting vertical and unwrapping and spinning on the wood post, and they'll spin at the same speed. Now if I get there, I was like, now if I can find the end of the bobbin, and I did. And you want them to be winding the same direction when you put them on. It's good not to have another bobbin sitting next to it with a thread laying around, because it'll grab hold of that. And now I'm taking both threads at the same time. How's that one getting caught? What is that getting caught on? If only I had magnifying glasses. There's a triple needle too, so being able to wind 3 bobbins. It's like, is there a little burr on this bobbin or what? Seems okay now. Okay, gotta unthread the thread that's already in the tension. And you hold on to them and don't let them slip. Take them at the same time all the way through until you reach the last thread guide right above the needle. And this is where we separate the 2 threads. Now, some machines have a little thread guide on both the left and the right side. If your machine does not, then take one through that and one not through that. So this is where we want to separate them, right above the needle. Make sure you don't get it twisted around that needle. And I do that by putting my finger behind the needle. And then I want to get that one out of the way while I thread the other one. Almost done. Once again, see how I put my finger behind the needle? It prevents it from getting twisted around Now we take both threads and try and make sure that you're paying attention that they're coming off straight. And of course, it's always easier if the, whoops, if you put the ribbon, and also it wants to curl towards the wrong side, just like fabric does. So see how it kind of lays down? Now you know that's the right side up. Fabrics like to hug the wrong side of themselves. Now before I do that, I should be checking on a scrap. Which I should have done with the lace, because part of the lace isn't perfect because I did not do what you should do. Now here is a very important fact. When using a double needle, you must use the center needle position. You have 2 needles and your zigzag opening is only so big. So when those 2 needles are in there on a regular machine, it has no idea you put a double needle on. And even the computerized machines have no idea that you just put a double needle on. You have to pay attention to this and make sure that your needle is centered. And if it's in center position, well, then those needles are centered within the maximum opening of your sewing machine. There are needles that go bigger than some sewing machines can sew. The 6mm needle and the 8mm needle. And the 6mm and 8mm needle is the distance between the 2 eyes of the needle. So if you want to know if your needle is going to fit your opening, you need to do so without the fabric beneath it. I know that this is a 3.0 double needle. If you have a slant needle Singer, you should never go bigger than a 3.0 twin needle. And that is just the restriction of the engineering of the machine based on the fact that the needle is slanted and comes down at an angle. Everybody else can probably go all the way to a 4.0 twin needle without any problems. But if your sewing machine zigzag stitch width does not exceed 5, you should not try a twin needle that is bigger than 4. You always want it to be 1mm smaller than the width of your zigzag stitch. So this machine being a 7mm wide sewing machine, a 6.0 twin needle is possible on this machine. If you, when in doubt, turn the handle toward you and without thread in, and make sure that the needle comes down and comes back up. Otherwise, you'll be terrified to start sewing. Now, because the needle must stay in the center needle position, that means that we can't move the needle over to the ribbon. This guide allows you to move the ribbon to center with your double needles. And you lift the foot a little bit, turn it, and then so. And now I like how it's centered. And this is how I don't waste a bunch of thread and ribbon. Holding on to the fabric, I can pull that thread right back out again. So even though I tested it, I didn't sew it, and I didn't waste any ribbon as a result. I'm going to grab hold of these 2 threads and pull that ribbon back out. Not too far though. I want to make sure that the ribbon length goes out past the base of the foot. And now I'm going to position the foot so that my ribbon is on the edge of that fabric. It's going to sound a little louder than it would because it's going through this denseness of this ribbon. And I hold the ribbon for the first couple stitches just to make sure it doesn't get pushed through, or that the needles don't try to push it through. I'm going to explain why. ribbon like this is similar to blue jeans, real blue jeans, denim, before they made it stretch. It has multiple layers, even though it is one layer. The weave itself has lots of different directions that the weave is, and so there's not a single spot for the needle to go to push through. And that is what a ballpoint needle or rounded tip needle does, is it tries to push fibers aside rather than cutting through them like a sharp needle. So it prevents damage on the fabric as you sew. You know, it'll be fine because we're not going to hold on to this ribbon. If you try gluing your ribbon down or pinning it down or fusing it down before sewing it, it will pucker the fabric. The only way for your ribbon to not pucker at all is to not hold it, to let it just be there as you sew. And it gives the needles time to navigate their way through the ribbon. So it's really quite something that you can also sew ribbon around in circles with this. Watching the front of the foot, don't look at the needles. And I'm keeping the gather from slowing things down, making sure the ribbon doesn't get caught on anything. Ignore the needles. And I don't know if you can hear the thump, thump, thump sound, but that is it going through that tight weave on that ribbon. And you can sew right through 1/8 inch ribbon using a 2.0 or 1.5 millimeter spacing double needle and have a better looking ribbon stitching than factories do. I have set up my foot on industrial double needle machines before, and they have 2 bobbins on those machines. Your machine doesn't, which makes something really wonderful happen. It overcasts the fabric's edge just because you use 2 threads and the 2 threads share 1 bobbin. What do you think? Ready to sew some ribbon now? This is the most challenging thing I've sewn ribbon on though, because you got all that gathering everywhere. All right, so now we're going to put our elastic in. Yeah, we could have actually sewn that down using the double needle. I'll show you. So had I had this folded down, then it would have actually sewn that elastic casing down, and you would have the overcast look right here, but it would all be stitched in. Because we're going to top stitch. Put the elastic in. Do you guys remember her waist measurement? Do you remember how much her waist was? I know she's not really going to worry about her skirt falling down. So the length of the elastic. Now we really should do the side seam first. I am going to teach you this way. This is the doll outfit way of sewing elastic. She probably would want it to be just, on her and not tight into her body. That's up to you, how tight you make your elastic on a skirt. I think she was like 7.5 inches around. But this is a good way to measure the elastic for your body, is to actually hold the elastic hold the elastic in your hand. That's what I meant to say. And of course, for ourselves, our elastic's going to be a lot bigger because we're bigger. And then you would put it on and stretch the elastic and go, yeah, that's how tight I'd like it to be. Now, she's a little girl, a little doll, so she doesn't have an opinion. And I think from what I've seen of most of the pictures of skirts made for her, they just have it on. Here's my measuring tape. Let's see if I remembered correctly. Lorinda was right. She actually measures 11. So it's a good thing I didn't go from memory. All right, so here's how we do this. We're going to go ahead and sew up the side seam and take the double needle off. Good job, Lorinda. You sew through 7 layers of canvas and upholstery fabric, plus fusible fleece. That's challenging. You must have an electronic machine. It needs an electronic motor to push through that much. So you use a leather needle for that, I would hope. That would be the nicest thing for your sewing machine. And using a longer stitch length makes it easier for the machine. You should share in the school what it is you made. Where's the needle pack? There it is. Yeah, we all want to know what you made. You have to show. You must share. I'm going to pull one bobbin out. So now you know you can sew from a bobbin, if you didn't know that. I shouldn't do that because, you know, I'm going to need that bobbin. And I'm going to go, if only I didn't sew using that bobbin, I would have that bobbin right now. It's the right color, and I don't have to change my thread. Getting hungry. 3 hours? How'd I do that? I said I wouldn't do that anymore. Oh, that's right. I started late. So you guys weren't late because I was late because of other issues. I'm going to mute myself while I take a sip. I made that straw sound. You used a jeans needle? So what I am making is a book cover, you guys. I am. I'm starting to carry around a notebook with me, and for doodling, actually, it's to keep myself from forgetting what I need to do. And one of the things I wanted to do was come up with some really cool quilting designs and just kind of blow you all away. Like I doodled and did the sunflower embroidery, I'm going to doodle on a quilt. But I'm going to teach you how to doodle and have success. So I've been practicing doodling in my notebook. And then I'm like, you know, I want a pretty cover. So That's what I'm going to do. So the first thing I'm going to do is sew up this side seam on this skirt. Satinedge Foot, where are you? I got quiet, didn't I? You use the pearls and piping foot for your piping, I hope. Although in upholstery we call piping welting. Straight stitch, left needle position. If you really want to make sure that this fabric doesn't fray, we can use an overlock stitch. I showed you that last week. I really think that this machine has got to go in for service. I can't have both of my machines out at the same time. Both. I have so many more than two. But if I did that, I'd be forced to open up that Eversewn machine and get it going. I actually got excited at the thought of pushing myself to do that by taking my other sewing machines away from me. It's like, I'm not my boss. Someone else is my boss, and whoever that is in my head, and they got very excited about pushing me around that way. Come on. Okay, so now I'm going to show you a different way of doing this so that you learn how to sew flat elastic. We're going to use the sequins and ribbon foot. And while this is not the way you may want to do it, it's just another way of sewing elastic. And it teaches you the formula. So we know that our elastic needs to be 11 inches for her waist. And that's without it being tight on her. And I always have like about 3 inches of elastic that I waste. So this is going to be cut away. Then you go, I'm going to do 10 inches. So it does tighten around her a little bit. And then I don't cut the other end until I'm ready. Then I take and fold my elastic so that my two end lines meet. I can do this so much faster at a show. Then I take and fold this again. You mark the inside and the outside of every fold. And that is how you can section off your elastic into equal quadrants without having to measure with the measuring tape. And now we're going to do the same thing with the garment. And we don't count the seam allowance. And we fold the fabric once. Did I fold it once or twice? Folded once and then twice. And then you fold again. And then you mark again the inside and the outside of every fold. And this is one of those iron erase pens. And now your garment is sectioned off. Should have the same number of marks. I think I did it. I think I folded this more. I did. This is what happens when I start getting hungry. I mess up on things. This fabric's not straight either. It's bugging me. Should have used the cutting mat that had the lines on it when I cut that fabric. Okay. Now I want to put the foot pressure back to normal. I reduced it. So on my machine it maxes out at a 4 foot pressure. Foot pressure is how hard the foot pushes down on the fabric. That's really hard to do. As I release the pressure, it becomes real easy to do. This is a presser foot, P-R-E-S-S-E-R, presser foot. And that is foot pressure, P-R-E-S-S-U-R-E, for pushing down, how hard it pushes. This elastic is bigger than that guide, and it is bigger than this guide as well. It's actually bigger elastic than I really need to use. Since it's more expensive, I think I'm going to go smaller on the elastic. Tons of it. This is silly. I have tons of this elastic. Where is it? Oh, I can't open that drawer. Ooh, I could do that too. Or I could show you how to do this one. Oh, there's so many ways to sew elastic. Wouldn't that be cute on the top? You know what? I have probably 1,500 yards of 1/4 inch elastic. And it's in a drawer, and the sewing machine, the Eversewn machine, is stopping me from being able to open the drawer. I think I'm understanding lace. You must be coming in late, Kathy. So this is a really cool waistband elastic, and it shows you how to do the fold. Oh, forget it. I'll just use this elastic. In case you guys haven't done a lot of face masks, my face mask pattern has a elastic chin, much more comfortable than other methods. There's going to be a whole segment on elastic in the school because there's so many different reasons and ways of sewing it. Everything's falling on the floor. I have too much up here. That's the problem when you don't cut your elastic. It's getting wrapped around my other things. I usually do it with the seam open. we'll see what happens, because I'm usually making a Barbie skirt when I'm at the show when I do this. So I usually sew up the side seam last, and I sewed it up already. And you stretch, and you can see how the elastic is just, the foot is just sitting on top. I'm not using the guide because this elastic's too big. So you can use this even for 1-inch wide elastic. It's the base of the foot that makes it so great. And I'm going to use a 3-step zigzag at my maximum width on my machine and my maximum length. I gotta think, am I doing this right? Yeah. My first stretch mark is to come to the seam allowance. If you can't stretch the elastic to reach the mark, then you know you need to ease your fabric first, which is gathering first. So your focus is on the marks, making sure they meet. See how it just takes it through? This is a dream. So much easier than using any other foot for sewing elastic. And I don't have my marks on the right side. So I'm kind of guessing here. Which is, oh, I probably wasn't. I need to eat. Coming up to where they meet. And what's neat about this is the elastic is attached, so it's not going to flip over and twist inside of a waistband. It looks ugly right now, but it's about to look nice. Now I'm going to cut. And when I reach this point where they overlap, I'm going to shorten the stitch length, which this is automatically doing because it's thicker, so the machine is slowing down, but I would shorten my stitch length. And so while stretching it, and don't let go in the middle of stitching it, and that, as the needle keeps going through, tacks it so that it won't come out. See how it has like a bar tack? It's a very strong stitch. Now we sewed this stretching to its full size, right? So if we want, we can now sew with it folded under, and we can sew with a straight stitch on top, and it won't flip over. See, I'm going to sew this way. Is that how I want to do it? I always start on my seam allowance because people won't look there. And I have had people sew with just the straight stitch, by the way. Featherweight machines able to do this with just a straight stitch. And I am switching to a straight stitch, lengthening the stitch length to the longest length. Foot pressure, strongest the machine will sew. And you see how the machine just takes it through? This is the bottom of this foot that makes it so amazing for sewing elastic. That's where the elastic is tacked. Get over there. There you go. It's got so much strength. It's quite something. So it's the base of the foot that is magic for sewing elastic, not the guides. Although the guides are really cool when you use a size of elastic that is able to fit in the guide. And even though there's a straight stitch, it will not break because we are stretching it all the way out. So once your fabric is stretched all the way out, it can never stretch more than that. Now I'm going to back up. Then you have this appearance on the inside. That's adequate for a doll dress for sure. See how perfect that is? And it stretches. So I guess it's time to try it on. I definitely need a better doll stand. Definitely needs a top. There we go. Not bad for really not having a pattern. It's adorable. I could just see a little granddaughter in that. Now I just need a granddaughter. So guys, do you have any questions? Because I'm going to be signing off here and going to eat dinner in my kitchen because we're in a hot spot according to the CDC. So I'm staying home more, which means I'm going to get more sewing done, more things for you to do. And I hope this inspires you to make a skirt for anyone, someone, even if it's just a doll. And remember, the more drapey the fabric, the more flattering on the figure. But last week we made pajama pants. This week a doll skirt. Next week it's up to me. No questions? So what about not having the live for the VIPs on the weekend, but instead doing it during the week? What day of the week would be fairy doll skirt? Here's the thing. Anything you do for a doll, you can do for yourself. So it's smaller and it takes less time and less fabric. Yeah, it's pretty simple. I did have these sizes at the beginning of the video, and I kind of followed it. All right, so that elastic process that you saw me do can be used for sleeves on little girls' dresses. If you have ever had a elastic wear out in a pair of pants, I had a customer come up at a show and she goes, I just took the elastic and slapped it right down on top of the original elastic, folded it over and stitched, and it looks great. And no one can tell that that rotting elastic is sitting inside of the pants and she can use them again. That foot is a power horse and it works pretty much on all machines like that. So, all right. So I am going to think about the VIP group and know that I've got so much to do. I wish I could get it all done at once. I'm excited about this, but now I can't stand her shirt. I might have to make a shirt. I do want to make a jacket for myself. Maybe I'll make a top. All right, you guys, I love you guys so much. Thank you so much for hanging out with me for another Fabrically Speaking Live Thursday. I hope that you have a wonderful evening and that your dinners are delicious or were delicious. If you're catching this on the rewind, this is July 29th, 2021. And I love you guys so much. Make sure that you subscribe to my channel if you've yet to do so. And if you like this video after the live is over, if you hit that like button, that helps YouTube know that you guys like what we're doing. A jacket, yeah, I want to do a jacket. And I'm going to make it a pattern so that you guys can do it. And I'm inking my fabric, and I'm going to show you the whole process. Probably not live, because sometimes you just can't do things live with although I've done a lot live, haven't I? A jacket made, inking and all of that. So it may be a project. We've got some flash drives that are bigger now that hold more hours. So I will be making longer processes or longer videos, hours and hours of video on a flash drive option for you guys on because I have to charge for some things, we have to make some money. And I love you, and I'm finding the button so I can gracefully say, see you guys next week. Bye. Mwah.